Legends have it that if one finds oneself alone with the Colosseum on a silent night, one can catch echoes of countless voices from across the centuries. Some cry out in agony, others beg for quarter, all of them ghosts of the past. For centuries, this place served as a symbol of both imperial grandeur and its darker side. Here, victories were celebrated with torrents of blood, and deaths were met with exultant applause. Power here was deified, as if it were a supreme force. Today, however, only half of the Colosseum remains. And the reason for this was not natural cataclysms or the relentless march of time, but something far more brutal, stemming from human nature. The Romans themselves dismantled it, stone by stone, with full entitlement, having obtained the requisite permits, and without the slightest hint of shame. But what compelled a civilization to destroy its greatest symbol? This is a narrative about a monument that served as an arena for spectacles, a grim prison, a cemetery, a production site, a refuge for criminals, and finally, miraculously, attained the status of a sacred place. It is a story of the betrayal of memory, of myths elevated to truth, and of truths that were conveniently silenced. This text will endeavor to uncover what many prefer not to discuss regarding the Colosseum. The reader will be able to understand why a significant portion of this architectural marvel disappeared, and perhaps realize that we ourselves live in our own Colosseums that we are not always able to discern. The information presented hereafter may radically alter your perception of the past, and perhaps even your self-understanding. 70 AD. The Roman Empire had just endured one of the bloodiest conflicts of the Judean War. The Temple of Jerusalem had fallen. The treasure seized as spoils of war surpassed all imagination, and one far-sighted politician realized that these riches should serve not merely to replenish the imperial coffers. They were destined to become the foundation for a monument celebrating the grandeur of Rome, a symbol of its people's enduring glory. This man was Vespasian, and the Colosseum became his boldest statement. However, many overlooked that the construction of this amphitheater, the most magnificent structure the world had ever seen, pursued more than just entertainment purposes. No, the Colosseum was initially an act of propaganda. Vespasian was elected emperor in a Rome ravaged by civil wars. He needed more than just a powerful army. He required a symbol of lasting peace, restored legality, and above all, unlimited power. And there was no more compelling way than to use the splendor of war spoils to erect a monument on the ruins of a predecessor's edifice. Vespasian did not merely demolish Nero's golden palace, Domus Aurea. He sought to completely erase it from public memory, replacing it with the Colosseum, a structure designed to stand for centuries and obliterate the remembrance of an emperor who had deemed himself a god. The magnificent Colosseum, a symbol of ancient Rome's power, was erected using funds obtained at the cost of the Jewish people's suffering. Gold, silver, and treasures plundered from the temples of Jerusalem served as the financial bedrock for this ambitious project. However, Vespasian, the initiator of its construction, required more than just material resources. He needed a workforce composed of captives and a constant reminder to the Romans of the immutability of power. The Colosseum's sheer monumentality served as a veiled threat, a demonstration of Rome's unwavering resilience, a city that, despite past defeats, had managed to revive itself and emerge even stronger. The Colosseum became a statement to the world: we are the masters of time. According to some historians, Jewish prisoners of war not only toiled on its construction, but were also compelled to witness the bloody spectacles unfolding in the arena, which served as a constant reminder of their defeat. The true genesis of the Colosseum story lay not merely in its construction, but in its magnificent inauguration, marked by grandiose spectacles. Over 100 days, approximately 9,000 animals were slaughtered in the arena. Thousands of gladiators, many of whom were prisoners of war, fought to the death, appeasing the bloodthirsty crowds. In those days, Rome was not just demonstrating its power, it was imposing it. The first spectators who filled the Colosseum stands became not just witnesses, but accomplices in these brutal displays. An entire generation of Romans grew up perceiving violence as an inherent part of life. The Colosseum transformed into a powerful instrument for shaping public consciousness. Through violence, Rome consolidated its power not only over people, but also over the very notion of empire. Vespasian, a shrewd politician, understood the true significance of the Colosseum, a meaning that eluded many statesmen. He saw it not merely as a venue for entertainment, but as a magnificent platform for vivid lessons on power, the transience of life, suffering, and the control of the masses. The fact that this grandiose structure rose on the very site of Nero's Golden Palace, a self-proclaimed deity, lent even greater force to its message: now we are the true gods of Rome. Imagine the Colosseum, its sand-strewn arena preparing to host an event that, for many Romans, would be the most vivid and memorable experience of their lives. A vast crowd, filling the stands, cheers wildly. But this is no mere theatrical performance. These are gladiatorial contests, a brutal struggle between life and death, man and wild beast. And it wasn't just gladiators fighting each other. Within the Colosseum, anything was possible, from the baiting of exotic animals and organized hunts to public executions. The Colosseum was not merely an arena for bloody duels, but a true machine for generating emotions, adrenaline, and the madness of the crowd. Here, in every battle, in every death, Rome demonstrated not only its military might but also its boundless power over the minds and feelings of its citizens. Picture this chilling scene. Gladiators, condemned to a deadly fight, enter the Colosseum's arena humiliated and defenseless. They are stripped not only of weapons, but also of human dignity. The gaze of thousands of spectators is fixed upon them, tension reaching its peak. Are they destined to survive, or will they be torn apart by wild beasts? And then, from beneath the arena, from the dark depths of the hypogeum, predators appear, transported from distant Africa, from ferocious rhinoceroses to enormous elephants, ready to satiate their thirst for blood. But this was not merely a spectacle of physical violence. It was a meticulously directed performance in mind control. The crowd did not just observe the course of the battle. They felt the approach of death, becoming emotionally invested in the fate of these people and animals. Each death became not just the execution of a sentence, but a kind of celebration, a ritual of power, a vivid demonstration of what Rome could do to those who dared to defy its grandeur. It is precisely here that the darkest aspects of gladiatorial combat become apparent. The warriors of the arena came from various strata of society: prisoners of war, slaves, and even those who sought a chance to gain freedom through combat. However, their origins lost significance in the face of a common destiny: to serve as a spectacle for a bloodthirsty society. The opening of the Colosseum was marked by the mass slaughter of 9,000 animals, a scale that seems unfathomable. But Rome pursued a deeper objective, demonstrating absolute power over life and death. Gladiators and beasts became not merely participants in a bloody performance, but symbols of the empire's grandeur, its dominion over nature and human life. Gladiatorial contests were not limited to duels between individuals. The Romans staged mock naval battles, flooding the arena with water to simulate sea engagements. This was an engineering marvel, showcasing the sheer scale of Roman entertainment. Spectators were captivated not only by the bloodshed, but also by the magnitude of the events. The Colosseum became a machine, manufacturing terror and delight on an industrial scale. In 107 AD, Emperor Trajan celebrated his victory over the Dacians with a festival lasting 123 days, involving 10,000 gladiators and 11,000 animals. All of this was designed to satisfy the primal emotions of the crowd, providing bread and circuses that kept the Roman populace in obedience as the empire approached its twilight. During the zenith of the Roman Empire, gladiators, these courageous warriors of the arena, transformed into genuine idols, surrounded by widespread affection and adoration. Roman matrons were willing to pay vast sums for vials containing the sweat of their favorites, believing in its magical properties and attributing to it the power of an aphrodisiac. And the gladiators themselves, despite their enslaved status or classification as condemned criminals, felt like stars of a captivating show. However, all of this was merely part of a grandiose political game. The Colosseum served as a stage where spectators became not just witnesses to bloody spectacles, but also objects of manipulation. Violence evolved into a unique, collective ritual, uniting the Roman people around the idea of the empire's grandeur and might. But nothing lasts forever. The Colosseum, once the heart of Rome, began to crumble long before the fall of the great empire. The reasons for this were not only destructive natural forces, but also human negligence, oblivion, and systematic plunder, which stripped the Colosseum of its former grandeur. Centuries had passed since the last gladiators left the arena. The Roman Empire was no longer what it once was. It began to feel the burden of time. Weary of their ancestors' luxury and cruelty, people lost interest in the old rituals. The Colosseum's arena lay empty. The buildings surrounding the amphitheater began to decay, as if mirroring the decline of the entire city. Despite this, however, the Colosseum did not lose its functionality. Instead, it transformed into a kind of quarry. Following a series of earthquakes, particularly the catastrophic one in 217 AD, the Colosseum's ruins became a legitimate source of building material, and the city began actively using its stones for the construction of new edifices. For centuries, the marble adorning the Colosseum's facade was dismantled, burned, and reprocessed for building temples, palaces, and hospitals. Nothing went to waste in Rome, and the city was nourished by resources extracted from its own monuments. Over many years, the Colosseum gradually turned into a cemetery. Rome's poorest families began to bury their deceased among the ruins, finding solace in a place that had once been a symbol of grandeur and power. The empire had fallen, but the ruins continued to serve as a refuge for those who lived in the shadow of the city, once the most influential in the world. Yet, the plundering did not cease. Pope Alexander VI, concerned with the future rather than the past, leased the Colosseum as a quarry. The ruins became a constant source of stone blocks, precious stones, and iron, supporting Rome's growth, a city that no longer required gladiatorial contests to entertain its populace. He saw value only in extracting the remnants of its former glory. The relentless march of time and the neglect of what was once a magnificent structure left their indelible mark. With the advent of the Middle Ages, the Roman Colosseum, from being a brilliant symbol of imperial power, transformed into a pathetic shadow of its former self. A dilapidated hulk, overgrown with weeds, choked with foreign plants, and filled with dark, ominous tunnels that only the bravest dared to enter. Centuries mercilessly chipped away at it, and human memory gradually erased recollections of its past grandeur. By the close of the 10th century, the Colosseum was nothing more than a hastily constructed fortress, seized by the Frangipani and Annibaldeschi families, two influential Roman dynasties, who transformed it into their military stronghold. What had once served as an arena for captivating spectacles and bloody duels became a haven for brigands and clans desperately battling for dominion over the city. In the 10th century, Rome plunged into an abyss of lawlessness and oblivion. The Church, having established itself as the city's primary power, was forced to relinquish its legacy of luxury and dominion. Against this backdrop, the Colosseum became an arena for less celebrated warriors, those who fought not for glory and honors, but for mere survival in a harsh and bleak world that no longer cared for the grandeur of the Roman Empire. The history of the Colosseum did not conclude with the decline of the Roman Empire. Its symbolic significance extends far beyond. In the 4th century, burgeoning Christianity brought with it a new system of values. Acts of generosity, known as munera, were prominent, memorable, and quite costly. However, these expenditures paid dividends, as they not only elevated the benefactor's status, but also secured them influence, respect, and sometimes even immunity. Some wealthy individuals donated thousands of denarii for bread, wine, or oil for the common people. The motivation was not compassion, but the understanding that supporting the plebs could sway political decisions in their favor. In surviving inscriptions, one can find phrases such as, "So-and-so paid for the restoration of this aqueduct for the glory of his family," or "So-and-so gifted this fountain to the people, and was elected aedile the following year." Even death became an occasion for generous donations. Many left clear instructions in their wills for money to be distributed to the poor, slaves to be freed, and public spectacles to be funded. They were driven not by repentance, but by the desire to preserve a good memory of their family name. In a society where progeny and memory held immense importance, every act of benevolence was an act of symbolic self-preservation. And while some actions were dictated by a genuine desire to help, as in the case of Pliny the Younger who funded the education of orphans, more often than not, philanthropy was a carefully calculated maneuver. In Rome, to give meant not to lose, but to invest in the future. For when a person possesses everything, the only thing left for them is to create an immortal legacy in the memory of their descendants. 2 millennia later, the grandeur of Rome continues to live on, not in frozen sculptures or weathered ruins, but in the ingrained habits of modern society. Today's world, having discarded purple togas and slaves anointing hands with fragrances, has donned expensive watches and branded suits, soars through the skies on private jets, and enjoys life in luxurious villas overlooking the sea. Yet, the essence remains unchanged: the desire to silently demonstrate one's superiority. Social media has transformed into the new triclinium, where users post photographs of exquisite dishes, exotic travels, and fashionable attire, driven not by a desire to share but by an urge to stand out, to underscore their high standard of living and their position in society. And although the faces of contemporaries are no longer minted on coins, they immortalize their image in company names, brands, digital currencies, NFT tokens, plaques bearing founders' names, and inflated biographies. Lavish feasts have transformed into exclusive parties for the chosen few, and Roman villas have given way to elite penthouses. Public gifts have become widely publicized charitable campaigns. Even leisure time, just as in antiquity, remains a symbol of belonging to the elite. He who can afford not to work, while continuing to augment his wealth, is considered truly successful. What then has changed over the centuries? Only the outward shell. Humanity remains convinced that value resides in what is put on display, that wealth, power, and high status must be demonstrated, and that if something is not visible, it simply does not exist. In this sense, Rome was not merely a great civilization, but a kind of instruction manual that modern society, sometimes unconsciously, continues to apply in its daily life. For a moment, step away from your daily routine and ask yourself, if fate had cast you into the era of ancient Rome, what role would you have played there? Would you picture yourself awakening in luxury, amidst linen sheets, surrounded by elegant statues and manicured gardens? Or rather, would you see yourself barefoot, trudging along cobbled streets, performing arduous labor, and deprived of any voice or choice? The truth is that in ancient Rome, as in any other society, the prosperity of the chosen few was inextricably linked to the poverty and oppression of the rest. The grandeur of Roman monuments has long since turned to dust, but the ideas underpinning Roman power, hierarchy, and the pursuit of prestige continue to influence the modern world. In light of this, a pertinent question arises: has humanity truly evolved, or have we merely changed the scenery, leaving the core essence intact? Understanding the history of ancient Rome allows us to better comprehend ourselves and the patterns of human societal development. It is crucial to remember that a people who disregard the lessons of the past risk reliving its tragic events.